Hello YouTube. I've got another interesting electric bike comparison for you today. As you see in the title, I'm going to be doing a quick comparison of 3 bikes. Really, it's a comparison of 2 bikes in the $1,000 range and then 1 bike that's in the $4,000 range. And as you can see, I only have 2 of the bikes here. I actually own these 2 bikes, as you may have seen in previous videos of mine. But I was taking my Ride1Up Core 5 into the shop last week, and I really got to looking at the different bikes that they had in the shop. And they carry, the shop that I went to, they carry a complete line of Trek bikes. And I was checking out a $4,000, or I think it's more like $4,290 for a Trek Elant 8S. It's a Trek commuter bike with a Bosch mid-drive motor. The salesperson told me it was the more powerful Bosch mid-drive motor. I don't know a whole lot about Bosch motors, but he had claimed that it was a more powerful one. So it was a Trek Elant 4S commuter bike, and so somewhat comparison to the Ride1Up bike that I have, the Ride1Up Core 5. And while I was looking at it and taking my bike into service, he said, "Hey, would you like to take the Trek out for a test drive?" And I don't think any of you, and certainly I, wasn't going to turn down that offer. As I researched e-bikes, and you probably are doing the same when you're researching e-bikes, I was very curious about mid-drive versus hub drive, about cadence sensor versus torque sensor, and what all the differences were. And you can read online and hear what other people have to say about them, but ultimately I wanted to test it. So when he gave me the opportunity to drive the Trek Elant, or to go test ride the Trek Elant, I jumped on it. So I thought what I'd do in this video is just give you a couple of things that I love about my 2 bikes, and then tell you about test driving the Trek Elant commuter bike. Again, it was a Trek Elant 8S, $4,290 or something like that. So literally 4 times the price of each of the 2 bikes that you see here. The Lectric XP that you see in front, and the Ride1Up Core 5. So let me tell you a little bit about what I love about these 2 bikes. I'm going to be real short because I've done thorough discussions in previous videos. And then I'm going to compare it to the Trek that I went on a good test drive with, and tell you a little bit about what a mid-drive is like and a torque sensor is like versus a cadence sensor. Okay, so the Lectric bike, great thing about Lectric, it's a great company, very popular bike, sells for about $900. That is the best thing about the Lectric bike. It is fast, it's fun, it's got a scooter feel. It folds, you can put it in the back. Here's my Honda Passport. My wife and I can fold up our 2 Lectric XPs and put them in the back of the Honda Passport, and we can travel without the need of having a rack on the back of our vehicle. So anyway, great little bike, great value, fast, fun, scooter-like. This is a bike by Ride1Up called the Core 5. Integrated battery, even faster than the Lectric XP, 28 miles an hour. You know, both of them go to 28 miles an hour, but the Core 5 gets there a little bit faster. It's got the integrated battery. It's got that more traditional bike feel. You can see I changed out the seat and kind of customized it a little bit. I put new grips on it and done some different things to it, but I just love the look of that bike. And it has much more of a traditional bike feel than the Lectric XP that's more scooter-like. So if you prefer, you know, having more of a traditional bike, you might look at Ride1Up. And you know, I really love the Core 5. I like the stripped down version. I don't need all the fenders and racks and those kinds of things. Just a fun strip bike is my favorite. So great bikes. One's a little under $1,000, one's a little over $1,000. And as I said, I was taking my Core 5 in just to get it tweaked by a professional, make sure that it was set up just right. And I got to test drive this Trek bike. And so I went on a good little test drive, and so I was really interested in what does it feel like to ride a bike with a torque sensor versus a cadence sensor. And so let me tell you a little bit what that's like. I would say when I first got on the bike and I started riding, it has about 4 or 5 power assist or pedal assist settings. And the highest level is called turbo. And he said, "I'm gonna go ahead and put this on turbo." And I was thinking, turbo, man. $4,000 bike, and he's putting it on turbo. This is gonna be badass. And so I took off on the bike, and I thought, man, wait till that turbo kicks in. And I waited, and I waited, and I was like, is the motor working? Maybe, I think it's working. Maybe it's working. And I was like, well, maybe I have it in really a really high gear or something. And you know, I had it in a mid-level gear, and I checked, and it was on turbo. And that's just the way the torque sensor works. It's subtle. As you give it power, it gives you a little more power. As you give more power pedaling, it gives a little more power. And so it's really subtle. It's nothing like that cadence sensor with that hub motor, where when the motor kicks in, you're like, I mean, that one should be, these should be called turbo, not what was on the Trek. Because when the power kicks in on a cadence sensor with a hub motor, you feel that power and it takes over. But with the torque sensor, it's subtle, and it just literally assists you along, but you need to be kicking in your own power in order to make that happen. And to get up to 28 miles an hour on this $4,000 Trek e-bike with the Bosch mid-drive motor, which is supposedly the large motor, you're really working hard to get it to 28 miles an hour. Where both of these bikes, certainly at 26 miles an hour, you can be cruising at the top level of pedal assist at 26 miles an hour and not even breaking a sweat. You're not going to do that on a torque sensor e-bike. So if you're looking for exercise, if you're looking for something that more resembles the natural actions of a typical mountain bike or a typical commuter bike, but just gives you a little bit of assist in power, then a torque sensor is great. If you're looking for something that's fun and wows you, then I think cadence sensor with a hub motor is the way to go. And that's the thing, an aspect that I would make the point to you is the fun aspect. While I enjoyed riding the Trek bike, you know, it's much more like riding a typical bike, just a little bit easier. But the way that a cadence sensor with these hub motors, when it kicks in, and that just puts a smile on your face. Everybody that I let drive one of my bikes with a cadence sensor, when they feel that motor kick in, you can see them smile, and they're like, man, that's really cool, that was fun, you know. And I'm not sure that you would get that response on the Trek bike. So another difference that I'd like to share with you, and I was been thinking about how to describe this to you, and the best way, I'm 53 years old, and so I learned to drive in the 80s with 1980s American cars. And you remember, if you got used to American cars and you're used to driving those cars that General Motors and Ford made in the 80s, and you know, they had some rattles and they had some quirks and they worked just fine, but the quality level, you're like, I don't know about this, you know, but they were good cars, they were fine. And then the first time you ever got into a German-made automobile, a Mercedes or a BMW, and you closed the door and it just went thunk, and you hit the air conditioner switch and it just went click, and there wasn't a rattle to it. It was just tight and firm and focused and not rattling and just really fully sorted. And we're talking about a new German automobile here. That difference, that's the best way I can describe going from my electric bike or my Ride1Up to jumping on the Trek bike that I tested. When I got on that bike, I mean, it felt tight, it felt fully supported, fully sorted. I mean, it was now I don't have hydraulic brakes. This had hydraulic brakes, and maybe that was part of it, but just every aspect of it just felt just fully thought out, fully sorted, fully adjusted, perfectly set up, and tight. And so that was a great aspect of it. You go over a bump and it's just solid. You don't feel rattling or something's loose or what have you. Now I have phone holders and that kinds of things on my bike, and bottle holders, and so, you know, maybe that's some of the difference. But anyway, just felt tight, fully sorted, very subtle power, but very high quality. So would I say it's worth 4 times as much as one of these bikes? Certainly not for what I have e-bikes for. I am happy with a $1,000 e-bike. That is all I need. If I were commuting to work every single day on a bike, if I wanted to have the bike for serious exercise, if I was commuting a long way on the bike, if I were actually riding mountain trails on a bike, you know, I would consider one of those Trek bikes or those higher quality. If it was my primary, if it was doing my primary mode of transportation, or it were my primary hobby where this is just what I do, then I would want something that was kind of at that quality level or at that price point. But for just having fun around my neighborhood, riding downtown and grabbing breakfast with my wife, heading out to the university and cruising around, you know, these are just perfect. And I would say these exceed the Trek as far as just pure fun factor. So I'm just going to wrap up. I'm going to show you a couple of things I've done. You know, if you've watched my videos, you've seen me do a comparison. And when I did a shootout between these two $1,000 e-bikes, actually I chose the Lectric XP over the Ride1Up Core 5. But after riding them for another month since that video, or at least 3 weeks since that video, I've done a few things to my Core 5. And actually, I would say my favorite now is the Core 5. And I'll give you a couple of things that I've done. You'll see the suspension seat post, the Suntour NCX suspension seat post with this seat. I'm telling you, that is just the most comfortable thing going over bumps. I don't even feel bumps in my seat at all. And then also, one of the reasons why the Lectric XP won the shootout was the upright riding position that you can get. And you can see I actually swapped out the bars and got wider bars and more swept back bars. And it even gave me more of a upright riding position. Well, I got an adjustable stem for my Core 5. And so now I can ride in a much more upright riding position. Look how beautiful that bike is. Man, that dark gray with the tan leather and the tan grips. And then check this out. When I had my bike, the maintenance guy work on it, I added these olive green pedals on it, and I just think that looks just really cool. I come from a military background and have 2 boys in the military, and so anyway, I just think that is now the coolest. As you can tell from my Miata, I like fun little toys. And anyway, this is now my #1 bike. The Lectric's fallen to #2. I would say it's A+ versus A, but they've switched positions in my heart. And the Core 5 is really taken primary position, and that's the one I consider my bike and I ride the most. So anyway, thought you guys might enjoy hearing about riding a $4,000 Trek bike. I don't think I'll ever purchase a bike that costs that much. Who knows what the future holds, but if you've ever wondered what riding a torque sensor bike is like versus a cadence sensor, that's the differences. And then I'm sure the Bosch mid-drive motor makes a big difference when you're going up hills and those kinds of things, but I wasn't able to test that. So just wanted to give you my impressions. Look forward to your comments below. Always enjoy meeting you over YouTube and interacting with you, so feel free to ask questions or make comments. I'd love to interact with you, and y'all have a great evening. Bye-bye.